Welcome to the latest edition of The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka 3-Piece Combo, and in today's segment, we're going to be getting into yesterday's game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this was a game that we were playing on a back-to-back. Jimmy had ended up twisting his ankle, tweaking his ankle the game before. He was able to play yesterday. We were able to keep it close till the end of the fourth, right? We did have to make up a little bit of ground at the end of the third quarter, and we ended up doing it in the fourth quarter, tying the game. But unfortunately for us, we weren't able to pick up the win. It was just some questionable decision making, not the best plays drawn out of set, and maybe some substitutions and missing some shots. Obviously, combining that with being on the second end of a back to back. So pretty rough game overall. A little more bad than good this time. Been on the streak for a good time, so there has been a pretty couple of good videos where we had a lot of good to talk about, and not a lot of bad. But in this video, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into kind of what went wrong into yesterday's game. But before we take a look at what went wrong, we're going to start with the good. Now, as always, if there's something that I didn't see in this game that you guys see, leave it in the comments. And at the end of the video, we'll talk a little bit about what happened there, and I'll put you guys up on the screen. And if you want to support the channel for free, just leave a like below. So let's go ahead and get into the good. So starting off with some of the positive takeaways from yesterday's game, the first thing I want to take away is that we actually, before we get into individual player performances, although we didn't shoot the ball particularly well, I did like what we did on defense, right? We hold Memphis to a pretty low percentage, shooting 35%, 23% from three. Now, they're not a great three-point shooting team, and they're not a great offensive team overall, so we shouldn't be too excited about this, but I still like that even though we weren't able to get things going offensively, we were able to hold down, kind of clamp down, and do some good things defensively. We were trapping Ja. We were making a couple of tough passes. Like I said, being on the second night of a back-to-back, it was a little bit harder than normal to do some of these things, and we were a step slow when we were playing on some of the defensive things, but I did like how we were able to defend them for most of the night. We did a pretty good job most of the night. Now, getting into individual player performances, like I said, you can never start this segment without talking about Jimmy Butler, right? Jim VP is our guy, and he delivered another great game. He had a pretty good first half, pretty solid first half, but third quarter was when he really started to deliver. He had 10 points in the third quarter by himself, and after he stopped scoring, the team forgot how to play, because that's when the Memphis Grizzlies went on that 17-0 run, right? But Jimmy Butler, I'm already out to 24 points, 7 rebounds, just 2 assists, so not as much as he usually would get, but that's sometimes due to the shots just not going in. I'm sure the potential assists were there for him. 10 of 20 from shooting, 2 of 6 from the 3. He did shoot a little more 3, which I like to saw as well. But what we didn't see as much is him get to the line, right? 2 of 3 from the free throw line. I'm sure it was because of that ankle, right? That ankle is usually the reason why he probably didn't drive so much and why he took so many threes compared to most games. But overall, still shooting 50%, still leading our team overall, and I liked what I saw from Jimmy. Now, as far as individual performances, I can't give out a lot of these good to anybody else, right? KO didn't do the best. Bam had a solid first half, but in the second half, he really folded. Dunk didn't do so great. None had a little short burst, but outside of that, not too great. But there is one guy that I want to give some credit to, Max Strus, right? He came in, and he was kind of like a pinch hitter for us, right? He's our pinch shooter. He comes in, just knocks down threes. He came in, and Michael from last night's postgame, he talked about how he was out for about 2 weeks, came in, and within the first 30 seconds of checking into the game, he knocks down a 3, right? And not only did he do that, he did a good job defensively on Ja Morant, and he hit a couple of, he had some good back cuts, right? Nunn found him on a good back cut, and Jimmy found him on a good back cut as well. So he had 7 points in just a couple of minutes. It was all in the second quarter, if I'm right, but I liked what I saw from Max Strus. We're probably not going to see too much of him moving forward anyways, because he's probably more situational that he's in the game, being that we're on the second end of a back-to-back. But overall, I did like what I saw from Strus. Of course, Jimmy and Jim VP, he did what he had to do. And I did like what I saw from this team defensively, although we didn't, get the stops when we needed to. But yeah, enough with that good. Let's go ahead and dig into some of the bad parts of yesterday's game, because there's quite a few things that I want to talk about. So, getting into the bad, there was a couple really, really bad parts of yesterday's game. The first part that I want to talk about was the part that I think really lost us this game, and it was closing out that third quarter, right? Allowing Memphis to go on a 17-0 run without hitting them back, right? earlier in the third quarter, like I said, Jimmy started off really well. He had that 10-point quarter. He was doing it all, but then it started to go the other way. Memphis started to make some shots. They started to get some fast break points. They're a young, athletic team, right? So they started to run on us, being on the second night of a back-to-back. How many times am I going to say that before the show ends, right? But we slowed down at the end of the third quarter, and we kind of dug ourselves into a hole going into the fourth. Now, that does fall on the shoulders of a couple guys, right? I like what Hero did in the fourth quarter, but I don't want to just see fourth quarter Hero anymore. I want to see a full, complete game Hero, because if he's only going to do it in the fourth quarter, why even play him for the first three? He's absolutely pointless right there, because he's not doing anything defensively. Offensively, he's not doing much, like I said, until the fourth quarter. So I do want to see a little bit more from him. Now, let's talk about Bam Adebayo, because Bam had a great first half. He was on his way to a triple-double, I think 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, something like that in the first half, but only finished with 5 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists in the second half, right? So you're a second All-Star. You're coming back from you're coming back from an injury. And the good part is Jonas Valanciunas was out earlier in that game. You got him out in foul trouble. So I wanted to see Bam be more aggressive, especially in the fourth quarter and the third quarter when Jimmy got his rest. I would like to see Bam be a little more aggressive, but that's something we're harping on all year. I do want to credit Bam a little bit just because he's still improved from last year. For us to say that he hasn't taken a jump at all is absolutely blasphemy, like Ariel said last night in the post game. But we do want to see him take a little more step because we know the talent's there. But let's get into some other guys. Precious was absolute trash. I don't even want to talk about him. KO was in foul trouble, so not too much you can really talk about his game. Maybe staying out of that foul trouble would help us, and that might have won us this game. Goran, man, 2 of 11, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. So Goran needs to do a little bit better. We're paying him almost $20 million for the year, and for him to not be able to at least have a couple of consistent performances is a little bit worrying because we're not sure how that's going to go. But overall, I didn't like just how he played offensively. Obviously, it's 5 games in 7 nights. We have the second game of a back-to-back, and all of our guys are on tired legs. But overall, this is a game that we still could have snuck out, still could have won. Pretty much anybody not Jimmy Butler and Max Strus is on the bad list. But there's one thing I want to talk about as far as the ugly, and there was still one thing that could have won us this game, at least kept it close. So let's go ahead and get into the ugly. Alright, so getting into the ugly. So let's get into the ugly, because although we put ourselves in a really bad position, we still had a chance to win this game, right? We were down 2. Bam was inbounding the ball. We had a timeout in the pocket, and Coach Spo decides not to call the timeout after Memphis blows up the play, right? It was very clear. Jimmy was sealed under the bucket. Bam tried to throw the ball over the top to maybe get him a lob, right? Maybe a lob attempt, but it didn't work out. Jimmy's on like we talked about, second night of a back-to-back. He just hurt his ankle. He's not going to go up and get that ball like he normally would, right? So for him to not call that timeout, I thought that was a horrible decision. And the second ugly part was just, honestly, let's talk about Duncan, because he had those 2 wide open. We never see Duncan get the wide open threes. And he had 2 wide open threes, and he just bombed them. And those 2 threes would have at least cut it to 3 if he hits one of them or tie the game, because we were down 6. And we don't have to, that puts the momentum in our direction. It shifts everything in our side, and we were already coming back from them having a 17-0 run. If we did that earlier in the quarter, we would have had a much better shot to win the game. So a little bit of a questioning on what Coach Spo's decision was to not call that timeout. And Duncan, got to hit those shots. And it's curious to see with the trade deadline coming up, what's that going to be? What if Duncan's going to be traded? How much are we going to pay Duncan? What's going to be the story with that moving forward? But overall, a couple of other things, let's talk about how bad Justice Winslow played, because that was pretty ugly too. But yeah, that's it for today's game. More bad than normal, obviously taking a loss for the first time in a little bit of some time from having that win streak, but still overall some good things to take away as well. Not horrible. Hopefully after coming back with some rest, playing the Indiana Pacers, we'll have a little more juice under our legs, right? But let's go ahead and get into some of the comments for the last game that we played the night before. All right, so we're going to get into the comments for the game against the Cavaliers. It was a good blowout win. My laptop is here, right? So I'm going to read the comments from this way. But let's go ahead and start off with Ayan Ali, frequent commenter. It was another good game. It was a good defensive night. I agree. What we did against Cleveland was great offensively, and it was great defensively. I loved how we did a little bit of trapping, we did a little bit of zone, and we just did kind of a little bit of everything. Coach Spo was our defense, so I agree that we're winning these games that we wouldn't earlier in the season, right? We're doing the things we should be doing, right? So we're getting those wins. I agree with you, Ayan. Definitely, I agree with you. The turnovers as well. We talked about that, I believe, in the last video. The turnovers were a little bit of an issue, especially in that first half, because that was keeping Cleveland close. But once we stopped turning the ball over so much, we did a lot better of a job, and we saw that improve in the second half. Kendrick Nunn got none of that dunk going on Jared Allen, and we're not going to talk about Bam Adebayo not getting none on Jared Allen either. So appreciate you, Ayan Ali, for commenting as always. Now let's go ahead and get into Young Assassin, frequent commenter, our UFC guy as well. We just got Ariza, dude. So hyped for getting Ariza. Whether we plug him into the starting lineup or we bring him off the bench of kind of like an Andre Iguodala role is yet to be seen. But I'm not sure if we're done yet making moves. So I think depending on the rest of the moves we make before the trade deadline is going to dictate what Trevor Ariza's role is going to be. I'm super excited for him. He's always been a good 3-and-D player, a little bit, great defensive player, and he brings a little twist. He brings that Jay Crowder role, right? He brings that back to the team. So it was good to see that coming back. Getting on to John Lopez, if Bam Adebayo had the offense Kelly Olynyk have, he would be top 5. If you're talking about maybe his 3-point shooting, I would agree he would be a top 5. And I think maybe within the next 2 or 3 years, we might see Bam start taking a couple more 3-point shots. So look forward to that seeing forward. And as far as Ryan Sproviero talking about New Jersey's needs to go, you know what? At first, I agreed with you, right? I didn't like the jerseys at first, but as I started, somebody said this on Twitter that they looked like Bumblebee from Transformers. And then I was like, okay, I can kind of see that. So I kind of started growing on this jersey a little more. I did not like him at first. I'm not a big fan of the color yellow at all. But when they started to say maybe it was kind of like that Bumblebee look, I was like, okay, not so bad. I can see it. I can see it. But like always, guys, I want to thank you guys for commenting. If there's anything in this video against the Memphis Grizzlies that I did not say that you guys wanted to mention, leave it in the comments down below and I'll put you guys up on the screen. Of course, if you want to support the channel for free, you love the Miami Heat, just go ahead and drop a like down below and subscribe. Appreciate you for checking out The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka 3-Piece Combo, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.